Hey folks, it's Seth with JensonUSA. A question that we get a lot here is, how do I change my brake pads? Well, today we're going to show you on a set of Avids, and let's get going. All right, we want to make sure we have the right tools in order to do this job. So what you're going to need is a flathead screwdriver or a 10 to 12 millimeter box end wrench, a 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench, as well as a new set of brake pads. Further, you might need some specific tools in order to get your rear wheel off, like I do today. I'm going to need a 5 millimeter, so let's get started with taking our rear wheel off. All right, for this next step, you're going to want to either use your flathead screwdriver or your 10 to 12 millimeter box end wrench. I'm going to show you how to do the flathead technique first. And for this, you're going to need to leave your old brake pads in. The reason this is because you can actually damage the surface of the brake pad here. And so that makes the brake pad no longer good. So what we're going to do is take your flathead, enter it into the side here, and give it a little bit of a twist in order to push the pistons back into the housing of the caliper. You'll want to do this on both sides, and you may even want to come in from the bottom and do that as well. The other technique that we have is using a 10 to 12 millimeter box end wrench. I've got an 11 here today. So what I'm going to start by doing is removing our E-clip on the back of the caliper here. That should just pop off by hand, but if it's sticking a little bit more, you can use a set of pliers to pull that off. Next, I'm going to grab a 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench, or if you have your Avid tool still, this is a T15 and a T25. This will actually work using the T15, but we'll use the 2.5 today. We're going to stick that into the pin that goes through the caliper here and loosen it up, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, just like normal. And we're going to back this all the way out. It is threaded, and it will slide out at one point. Make sure to put that to the side and don't lose that. Next, we're going to grab the entirety of both our brake pads as well as their spreader pin in between. You're going to pull this out from the top. This is what it is called a top-loading brake. So we're going to pull this out from the top. You see it comes out as one nice little chunk here, and we're going to set those aside. Here's where we use our box end wrench. What we're going to do is we're going to take this, and the angular side is going to go to one side, and you're going to rest it against these points where the pin went through. From there, you're going to give it just a little bit of a push to make sure that both of your pistons seat all the way into the caliper. Once they've been seated all the way back in, we're going to be ready to put our new pads in. To do that, we're going to make sure that we have both pads as well as the H spreading pin here. And we're going to squeeze them together and slide them in just like that. Some pads are labeled with an R and an L. If they are asymmetric, that means that you have a right-hand side and a left-hand side. It is right hand if you're looking down the bike, so on the drive side, and left hand on the non-drive side. Now we want to replace our retention pin. Just slide it in. And again, you can grab a T25 or one of these Avid tools and twist that in and get it just a little bit snug. It's 80 inch-pounds of force, which is not a whole lot. So you just want to get it snug enough. And then replace the E-clip back in there. From here, we're ready to reinstall our wheel and check to see if we've got good clearance on our pads and rotor. All right, let's do that. So we've just tightened this wheel up. Now we just want to make sure that the rotor and the pads aren't rubbing against each other. So we'll give this a good spin. Just listen. Everything sounds good so far, but like most brakes, Avids are self-adjusting brakes, which means as you grab the lever, the pads actually move closer to the center and align themselves around the rotor. So what we need to do is give the brake lever a squeeze a few times in order to make sure that it centers on this rotor. So we'll squeeze it a couple of times, spin it to make sure we're not rubbing. Everything sounds good. Maybe squeeze it a few more times for good measure. And just listen. Sounds good to me. This has been Seth with JensonUSA, your cycling experts.